Hello, BookTube. This is Aaron from Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book. I've got a big TBR video today. I don't usually do TBR videos because I'm such a mood reader. It doesn't often apply to me, but this year I have a vague plan to read quite chunky books. So a lot of these are going to be quite chunky. And I'm going to copy what I've seen other people doing, which is 25 books to read in 2025. So that means, I've got a good chance that I might actually read some of these books. And I'm going to start with 3 quick ones that I basically have to read. So yeah, we'll go through those. First one is Raph by John Gwynne. This is the 4th book in the Faithful and the 4th and final book in the Faithful and the Falling series, and I'm on the 3rd one at the moment, which is why I haven't made any Friday reads in a while, because I want to wait till I've done the whole series and then I'll do a Friday reads. But yeah, definitely going to read this because I'm halfway through the 3rd one, and they're all big chunksters, so that counts as part of my chunky book philosophy. Just realised that I've got nowhere to put all of these 25 books once I've picked them up. We'll work that out as it happens. The next 4th in a series is Buddika, Dreaming the Serpent Spear, which is the final book in the 4th and final book in the Buddika series by Amanda Scott, which I've been buddy reading with Sarah from Your True Shelf. And yeah, I'm loving these books. We're on the 3rd one, so again, easy choice. If you haven't read these, highly recommend anyone who likes historical fiction give them a go. And it's kind of unusual to get historical fiction from that far back as well. It's nice. The next, I think this is the 4th book in the series, isn't it? Jack. What is it? Jack. Not is it Gilead, Home, Lila, Jack. I might be missing one. I think this is the 4th and final book in Marilyn Robinson's series, although it might not be the final book. It's the only one of the series I've not read, and Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading is currently doing a read-along of the whole series, so we're doing Gilead in January, Home in February, then I think there's a gap for March, and then April will be Jack, so definitely going to read Jack. I'm not counting rereads in this list, so I've already read the first 3 and I love them. I think Marilyn Robinson is possibly my favourite living author, so very much going to be enjoying these. Then let's get on to just the random ones. So I don't even know where to start. I've got a huge part. I'll go with the Q1 of Historathon book. I think I'm going to read this for Q1 of Historathon this year. It's Tom Holland's Rubicon. The Triumph and Tragedy of the Roman Republic. So this, I believe, starts with the crossing of the Rubicon, and Julius Caesar's decision to invade Rome. I think I don't really know. That's not going to read it, but Tom Holland, love his podcast. The Rest is History. Last year for Q1 of Historathon, I read his very slim book on Athelstan and enjoyed it, so I think I love listening to him on The Rest is History, so I'm sure that will be good. I do have one of Dominic's books as well on Kindle, so I might read that for Q4, but I'm not showing any Kindle books here. What should we go for next? We'll go with a science fiction, Always Coming Home, Ursula K. Le Guin. This is probably the most major Ursula K. Le Guin book that I haven't read yet. I think I've read all of her other major novels, and this is very strange because it's almost like an anthropology book. Like it's kind of like, it's almost a study of a like you can see there's songs and archaeology and things. It's a study of a society basically, but a fantasy society. And it very much divides Le Guin fans. Some people love it, and some people I think find it quite tiresome. Let's go for a classic next. Far from the Maddening Crowd. I want to read this because it's about a woman farmer, and that sounds interesting to me. I have read some Thomas Hardy before, but not since I was a teenager, maybe, or early 20s. I enjoyed him at the time, but you kind of have to be in the mood for him, don't you? Because he's a bit miserable. But I think I read Jude the Obscure. Maybe I've only read Jude the Obscure. This would be good to give it a go. It sounds like it hits a lot of my interests. Obviously, if you've read these books, let me know what you think of them. I imagine a lot of people read that one. One that people may not have read is The Long View by Elizabeth Jane Howard. I bang on a lot about the Cazalet Chronicles on here, 5-book series she wrote, and I absolutely love. I've gone back now and started reading her books from the start of her career, and I think this is the next one, the second book. If not, I've got her second book somewhere else. I'm also going to be rereading the Cazalet Chronicles, at least the first book, this year with Joe Smith and Sarah from Your True Shelf. So I'm dragging people one by one into Elizabeth Jane Howard. So I look forward to another one. I believe that's regarded as one of her best as well. Let's go for another non-fiction. This could go quarter 4 of Historathon. It's Lana Alexovich. Svetlana Alexovich, I think I'll go with. The Unwomanly Face of War. And I've got 2 of her books now, but I haven't read either of them, so I really need to read one. And she kind of collects primary sources, so I suppose it counts as primary sources. She just collects and goes and interviews loads of people that were there when something happened, and this is women in World War II, I believe. And she weaves them together in some interesting way that everyone says is amazing, and I think she's won the Nobel Prize or the Pulitzer Prize, one of those two. I think Nobel. Let's jump into a small book, a thin book, you might say, The Thin Man by Dashiell Hammett. I think I've put this in my TBR loads of times, but I'm definitely reading this for March Mystery Madness this year because it sounds really fun. It's hard-boiled. It's about a couple that solve mysteries, I think, or solve a mystery, a murder. But it sounds really interesting. Yeah, not more to say about it. This one is Stegner Crossing to Safety. I picked this up because Sarah from Your True Shelf put it in her top 10, and it sounded like something I would like. I can't remember what she said about it, but I think it's about one couple that's having a moody time and one couple that's having a great time, or that might be the same couple. Maybe it's about a split in time or split universes, and in one universe they're very happy and one universe they're very sad, or like the terrible film Sliding Doors. But it sounded interesting at the time, but I can't remember what it's about now. Let's go history again. World War II. I really want to read a sort of start to finish history of World War II. This is a trilogy by James Holland, who's Tom Holland's brother, but he's much more focused on World War II, and this is the first in his trilogy on World War II. So I really want to read sort of big chunky books about World War II because I feel like I've not explored it as much as other areas of history, especially British history. So that sounds interesting. Again, I think Tom Holland's got a reputation for being a very readable, popular historian, so it sounds good. Oh, you can just about see the edge of the pile there. It's getting large. Let's go for a mystery, and again, for March Mystery Madness, I picked up Maisy Dobbs, and last year during March Mystery Madness, I made a video about my favourite detectives, and I asked people what theirs were, and a lot of people said Maisy Dobbs. So I've got the first book in Maisy Dobbs. Don't really know what it's about. Quite like the cover. Maybe set in London, I'm guessing. But yeah, sounds good. I realise I've got a lot of history books here. Let's go with a different period of history. Elizabeth the Queen by Alison Weir. I definitely do want to read more history this year. I feel like last year I really wanted to hit 100 books read, so I ploughed through a lot of easier stuff. Not particularly short stuff, but history always takes me a lot longer because I am sort of a person who studied history all their life. I have a degree in history and A-levels in medieval history. So I tend to get bogged down and look at like go down rabbit holes when I'm reading something. I want to learn more about Queen Elizabeth's mate or whatever. I go down a lot of Wikipedia rabbit holes when I'm reading history, so I avoided a bit last year, but this year it's chunky book year. Don't care about the number of books I read. So, and I feel like I've never really read anything about Queen Elizabeth, which is weird. It took me quite a long time to get into the Tudors. I was always a medieval kind of man. So the Tudors has been kind of the last 10 years I've really got into them, and the Romans. And yeah, Elizabeth's obviously a massive part of the Tudors. And I've not read much about her. It's always been sort of Henry and people. But yeah, Alison Weir, safe pair of hands, isn't she? I love her book on Eleanor of Aquitaine, and I've read her book on the Six Wives of Henry VIII as well, which was also very good. I've never read her non-fiction though. I'd like to give that a go as well. Let's go sort of a YA book, you could say, and that's Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I feel like this is just like a missed out book for me. I can't believe I've not read it. I guess probably more targeted at little girls, and that's probably why I haven't read it. I also think it's perhaps more popular in America. I don't see it talked about as much in England, so I'd like to give it a go though. A lot of booktubers who read similar stuff or enjoy similar stuff to me seem to like this book, so that's a good sign. Yeah, and let me know if you think I like it. Let's go another classic. Daniel Deronda, George Eliot. This is a big chunkster. I've read Silas Marner last year in 2024, and I really enjoyed it. Didn't quite make my top 10, but it was very close. And Middlemarch the year before was my number 2 book, and it was only beaten by Elizabeth Jane Howard's The Light Years, and I consider Middlemarch and The Light Years 2 of my favourite ever books, so that was a very good year. But yeah, loved Silas Marner as well, much more than I thought I would, considering how small it is. And I wish to continue on my George Eliot journey, and I think this is Kate Howe's joint favourite with Middlemarch, so that sounds exciting. Next we'll go Barbara Tuchman, or I don't know how to say man. Her book The Guns of August. I just watched yesterday a book, I think just came out yesterday, a video by Jen, insert literary pun, I can't remember what her channel's name is now, but I think it's just her name now. But she did a comparison of this and another book, and this is a much older book than the one she was comparing it to. And she kind of came to the conclusion that this is less accurate but more entertaining to read. And I read Barbara Tuchman's book A Distant Mirror, which is about the 14th century, and that's a really fun history book. And this one is about, I think it's about the month before World War One, or maybe just the general lead up to World War One. It won the Pulitzer Prize as well, so it must be pretty good. I really love this edition of as well. It just looks like the kind of cover that you want to pick up. The next one is also kind of book clubby, and that's for Mary Andreas at Books and Bookadillos. She's doing sort of a year-long read-along of Latin writers, and this is the April edition. The Invisible Wife of Eurydice Guzmão by Martha Balata. Don't take any of my pronunciations as gospel. Don't know what it's about. Cool. Cover's kind of interesting. It sounded interesting when Mary Andrea talked about it. Again, I've forgotten what she said about it, but it sounded interesting. So I wanted to do one of the book club, and I picked this one. Let's go for another big chunkster, Hawaii by James Michener. And again, this is one that I always say, this is on my TBR. I just want to read a James Michener. I've got Mexico as well, but I think Hawaii is regarded as one of his best ones. And what he does is starts at the history. He starts at the very start of the history of a place and then goes all the way to the present, I believe. So this starts as like when people first wash up on Hawaii, and I think maybe even before. It might start all of human history. All of human history on Hawaii. But there's stories weaved through it, I believe, characters. It's a fiction still. They just sound really interesting. I want to give one a go. And it's the year of the chunkster, so we'll have to. Another person who I read last year for the first time, I say another, a person who I read for the first time last year, Rosman September. I might read this in September, but I quite often like to do Shorty September. Like last year I did Shorty September, and I hit every single prompt, so I read like 16 books. So I didn't really have any time to read this, but I do want to really read another one of hers. And I forgot about the Shell Seekers for some reason when I was making my top 10 of 2024, but I would have put the Shell Seekers third on my list. It was my third favourite book of last year, so I wish to continue on with her books. I've got a couple of others as well. Next we'll go a really big chunkster, the Mitfords, Letters Between Six Sisters. I've spoken a lot about the Mitford sisters on my channel. I've read Jessica and Nancy's books, at least. I've read 3 Nancy books and 1 Jessica book, and I just find them a fascinating family, and I want to read their letters, which is meant to be an amazing read. Another classic, Elizabeth Gaskell, Mary Barton. Love all of the Elizabeth Gaskell books I've read, apart from her Gothic stories, which I found underwhelming, and that was the first book I read by her. My camera fell over, so we'll do that again. I loved North and South. I loved Wives and Daughters, which I read last year, and that was in my top 10, and I love Cranford, so I need to continue on with Elizabeth Gaskell. Another chunky one, Alexander Reynolds with Revelation Space. I've sort of been reading about Alexander Reynolds recently. He's a big British science fiction writer, but I've never read any of his stuff. And he writes kind of space opera stuff. And traditionally, I am less of a space opera reader than more perhaps philosophical or literary sci-fi I tend to go for, like Le Guin. But recent years I've got more into space opera and action-y type sci-fi, and maybe it's time to give Alexander Reynolds a go. He sounds interesting, so if you've read this, let me know. A favourite author of mine that I'm making my way through her books is Barbara Pym. Less Than Angels, I believe, is regarded as one of her best. But I kind of, it's hard to separate any of her books for me. They're all a good time to me. Yeah, so I will continue to read them, and I feel like they're ones you can read and reread, Barbara Pym, because they're a bit all the same in a way, but all enjoyable in the same way at the same time. They're just very funny, Jane Austen-y type stuff, but in the 1950s. And usually with older characters. Yeah, and again, someone that I'm a big fan of and reading through all his books, Anthony Trollope. Tried to say Alexander Trollope. This is Can You Forgive Her? It's the first book in the Pallister series, which I've finished all of the Barchester series, so I feel like it's time to now go into the Pallisters. I did read some standalones in between, so now I'm ready for the commitment of a big series again. And Plantagenet Pallister is in some of the Barchester novels, or at least one of the Barchester novels, so you have already met one of the characters, and everyone always says read these after, because these contain spoilers, I think, maybe for some of the Barchester stuff. But yeah, this is a TV edition. There was a TV adaptation. And book 25. I think that if I've counted correctly, that's 25 books. And I've done it in under 25 minutes. I'm impressed with myself. And that's Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. I don't have that many. I've read at least one book from all the Brontes. Obviously, Emily only had one. I've read The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne, and I really enjoyed that. And Charlotte, I've read Jane Eyre. So, is that the right way around? I think I've got the names right. I might not have got them right, but yeah, I've heard good things about Agnes Grey, and it's a short one, as the Brontes go. I don't think that the writing's quite big, so it's not a big commitment. But yeah, I'd love to give some more Brontes a go. So that's my 25 books for 2025. Obviously, if you've read any of these, let me know what you think of them. If you've read all of them, I will give you 10 English pounds. So yeah, write in and tell me if I owe you a tenner. But if you like them, if you hate them, let me know. And what are your plans for 2025? Are you going for chunksters, or are you going for a goal? Are you going for short books? Have you got any sort of themes going on in your reading this year? Let me know below. Have a good one, BookTube. Bye.